broadcasting from an undisclosed location, from a secret hunting spot known only to him, and the guy who told him about it, and possibly the guy who told him. It's a show all about hunting in New Zealand and around the globe. This is The Hunting Show. Find The Hunting Show on Facebook and Twitter for up-to-date information on upcoming shows and topics.
Welcome back to another week of The Hunting Show. I'm your host, Stephen Spargo, and thank you for tuning in and listening to me talk for at least half an hour of your week. In front of me, I have Pete the Bushman. That's the book by Peter Salter. He gracefully sent me a copy. And I'll tell you what, it's well worth a read. It's available in all Paper Plus and hunting and fishing stores. Something about it is actually compelling me to the next page. And Pete hasn't paid me to say this, and I actually think his exact words were he wouldn't. But what I will say to you is the way he's written and the writing style, I'm sure most of you will enjoy. And this gives you an idea of the style of writing. And I'm going to read the opening paragraph. And it goes, shooting is your first stag is a rite of passage. You may not realise it until it happens, but it changes everything. Beforehand, you're an unproven tramper with a gun. Afterwards, you have joined the realm of people who can put meat on the table. You have a new understanding of life and death. And you know, and the whole book's not quite like that, but that gives you an idea of the writing style. And there's some good laughs in here. You know, he talks about Christ Almighty. There it was, a bloody stag. You know, that's the style that you're going to see in this. Well worth reading. Get it from your local library, but probably to help Pete along, buy it. Father's Day is coming up. Ask for it. That's Pete the Bushman by Peter Salter. Now, another great Bushman is our interview today. Joined by phone with Josh, the Kiwi Bushman. How are you, Josh?
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Now, Josh, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, my background, I grew up in the North Island on the East Coast, in the concrete jungle of Napier. I was a pretty keen hunter and fisher when I was a kid. Yeah. And, you know, I got out to the outskirts of the city every chance I got to trap rabbits and hunt possums. And, well, rats actually were quite a big part of our target market. I guess rats at the dump with our slingshot and our little fox terriers. But, you know, we branched on to rabbits and possums and fishing on once a week. We wagged a day of school and went out and snapper and trevally and mullet and anything else we'd catch.
And from there, you've got into a bit of possum trapping?
Yeah, possum trapping. Been trapping possums over the winters for the last 7 years now, Stephen.
Yeah. And that's sort of coming to a bit of an end for you. And can you tell us a bit about why?
Yeah, it is. Possums are getting harder and harder to find. I mean, for the last 5 years, when I first got into it, it was pretty good. There was possums on the side of the road. You could just go on any old place and run a trap line through the bush and not have to travel too far to nail them. But they did a massive 1080 drop about 5 years ago. Yeah. And ever since then, they've been slowly plugging away with the 1080 poison. And the possums are still there in good numbers, but right deep in the bush. And, you know, I need to take a helicopter to get into them, so that's $800 to get into the hills and out again right off the bat. That I've got to trap a couple of days just to come up with the heli flights pretty much.
Josh, you've had quite a bit of media coverage lately. How's that gone for you?
It's gone pretty good, actually. I've had a couple more sponsors jump on board, which is fantastic. I'm kind of after cash out of the sponsors, but product's always good.
Yeah, well, and ask them for cash on the show if you like. I don't know if it'll help you.
You never know. Well, Stony Creek have offered to cough up a bit, which is good. They're still figuring out how much they can afford to give me. But I think the spin-off from Campbell Live was I got a couple of boat sponsors, which is fantastic because you can't really swim out to the ocean, can you? So,
well, not reliably. Now you've got sponsors, but for what, Josh? What's the end game here?
The end game ideally is to supplement my lavish lifestyle so I don't have to get a real job, so to speak. I just want to keep hunting and fishing and get paid for it, and it seems to be working out quite good so far.
Yeah, so the idea is to put together some videos?
That's the idea, yeah. I started making videos about a year ago. I've always been fairly handy with the camera. My dad was a bit of a dad with a camera, so he taught me how to take photos and get all the framing right, and video was pretty easy as long as I got good framing in the shots and had good subject. I could take fairly good video, which I've been doing for my whitewater rafting business for the last 15 years, but I never thought about jumping in front of the camera until last winter when a couple of mates of mine from Canada, they wanted to see what this possum plucking business was all about. I mean, they heard I've been wandering around in the woods plucking possums, and they were quite interested to know just what this entailed. So I made a video called The Possum Whisperer, which kind of started the whole thing off.
Yep. You've got to be careful how you say plucking possums, otherwise it's a whole different video, isn't it?
It conjures up a lot of different images when you tell someone you're a possum plucker.
Yeah, don't Google the other word. Hey, so Josh, you've obviously started these videos. You put them onto YouTube. Have you had a good response?
I had quite a real good response from the first video I made, which was the Possum Whisperer. That one's not actually on my channel because it was on a different channel, the rafting channel. And I got such a good response, so I decided to go somewhere with it. And me and Ben Tumata from Big Game Hunting New Zealand actually went tar hunting last winter, and we put our heads together and thought we'd come up with the idea of a hunting show to get on New Zealand television. So we got another guy, Mark Hamilton from Mountain Edge Productions, and he was our cameraman. Me and Ben were kind of the characters in the show, and we put together a wee pilot for the television stations. But that didn't go so well because the TV stations and all the free-to-air stations in New Zealand feel that there's not enough hunters out there to make a hunting television show worthwhile.
Which we know is a load of rubbish because heaps of New Zealanders hunt. I mean, the number that's been bantied around for the last few months, particularly in political circles, is that 300,000 New Zealanders actually identify as hunters.
Crikey, that's a huge number. See, we were told by the television stations there's only about 60,000 out there. So.
Yeah, but you add on to that things like duck hunting as well. And, so the number I've had bantied around, and I don't know how true it is that 300,000 level, and I suppose that's people that identify as hunters or interested in hunting. So there's definitely a market there. It's a shame that you didn't get that push onto free-to-air TV. Yeah,
I reckon we'll get there in a couple of years, but what I'm going to focus on this summer is the fishing side of things, because there's a lot more fishermen in New Zealand. So now that I've got boat sponsorship, we're going to crack into the fishing side of the whole caboodle and see if we can come up with a fishing/hunting television series and film that and then sell it to the free-to-air stations. So watch this space, I reckon. We'll get on TV pretty damn soon.
The other thing that I think's happening is with all these great new shows coming, like the Hunters Club with Dave Shaw, that do have upcoming TV coverage, surely the networks are going to see the success of these shows and then be more interested in what you've put together?
I think so. I'm pretty sure it's heading that way. And the other thing with hunters is hunters are so passionate about their sport. You look at duck hunting, for example. Some blokes go out there and spend $6,000-$7,000 for 2 days hunting a year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Hey, rightly so. The interesting thing, I heard a great quote the other day that the someone's wish when they die was the only one wish they had was that their wife didn't sell their firearms for what they told her they paid for them.
Yeah, my mate Smitty's actually in that boat. He spends God knows how much money on guns and moderators and adjusterometers and all kinds of fancy. He's got a pair of binoculars worth $4,500. Yeah, and that's pretty typical of a hunter. They're so mad about their sport, they go out and just go nuts on equipment.
And you can see that. So there is a market there. These great big hunting and fishing stores that are opening up all over the country and really supplying this market and dedicating themselves to it are definitely a sign that there's the market there. So the TV stations surely will follow. Now, Josh, you've got a YouTube channel and you've also got a Facebook page. How do people find you online?
I've got a website as well, the kiwibushman.co.nz. I'm still chipping away working on that one. At the moment, that just portrays all my YouTube videos. They're under different sections, and it's also got a bunch of recipes and other resourceful links in there as well. Yep. And I've also just started a newsletter, which is an online magazine, so to speak, and we're bringing that out fortnightly until it starts to gain momentum, and then we'll bring that out once a month. And that's got some really great resources in there as well. And for the online, for the newsletter, the online magazine, we're aiming towards the hunters' wives, the hunters' children, not just the hunters themselves. So there's gardening, there's cooking in there, there's boating, there's weather reports, and a whole bunch of other online resources.
And if they want to sign up to that, they do that through your website?
Yeah, just jump on the website and they'll find a link on that.
Now, Josh, you're a keen hunter. You've been doing this a long time. Give us a couple of decent hunting stories. A couple of decent hunting stories. Yeah, particularly, hopefully they're true.
Well, last week I went out and shot a deer.
Yeah, how'd that go?
That was pretty good, actually.
Come on, give us a decent one.
That's one of my better hunting stories, actually, that one.
Yeah?
That one's fantastic.
Well,
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah? Give us something.
I have to say bow hunting. I think if I was to tell a good story about hunting, it would be about bow hunting. I still haven't recovered an animal yet. I managed to get an arrow away at a stag last year. I've just got into traditional archery. It's actually fantastic. I tried to hunt with a compound bow with the sights and all the caboodles on it a couple of years ago, but it was too mechanical. I ended up throwing away. And a friend of mine told me I should just give traditional a go. And, I had no idea that you could become as accurate as you can with a traditional method of archery, which is just focusing on the target and letting rip with an arrow. So I've been getting quite heavily into my bows and arrows lately. I'm shooting it every day, try to get about 100 arrows away. Yeah. And last year was the first raw that I went deer hunting or stag hunting, and I left my gun at home. I just took my bow, and I have to say it was bloody exciting. Just the feeling you get walking around with a bow and arrow. It took me back to when I was a kid, and the imagination runs wild and cowboys and Indians kind of styles. But I have to say the adrenaline was a lot more adrenalised than hunting with the bow and arrow. You have to be a lot sneakier. You have to get a lot closer. You can't just charge in on the animal like you can with a gun because your arrow's catching on stuff and the bloody bow's catching on whatnot. And I did manage to get an arrow into a stag, but I jumped the gun and I went straight in on him instead of letting him sit down and expire, and he took off and he legged it for about half a K. I managed to track him for about 300 metres over the space of 3 hours, just a little drop of blood here, a broken blade of grass here, but I never caught up with him. But I'm fully hooked now, and I think any trophy hunting I do from here on in, I'll just be taking the bow and arrow, not the rifle.
Do you think that bow hunting is sort of the next evolution? For me at the moment, I'm quite happy, getting out there with my centerfire, but from what I can gather from guys like Matt Willis, who are legendary bow hunters, it's kind of, once you've been there, done that, got your trophies or had a bit of hunting, it's kind of the next skill set.
I think so, yes. Some people really struggle shooting the deer. They say that 10% of the hunters harvest 90% of the game, which I can understand.
Yeah, I believe that.
And deer are hard enough to shoot at the best of times with a rifle. Sometimes with the bow and arrow, it's definitely another step up. And you've got the whole challenge of being able to accurately shoot something without the aid of a sight. I'm talking about traditional archery here, not with a compound bow. I don't really view a compound bow with sights and stabilizers as a true form of archery because it's just like using a gun. Sure, there is a certain amount of skill involved, but it's not the same as shooting something with a slingshot or with a traditional bow and arrow where there's no sights, and just the feeling you get out hunting, even rabbit hunting with the bow and arrow or walking around shooting targets. It's a totally different feeling when you focus on a point and all you're focusing on is that point you're trying to hit, and you pull that arrow back and let one slip and it nails it to within millimetres of where you're looking at. It really is quite satisfying.
Can you, and it's a longbow that you're hunting with, is that?
A longbow and a recurve, yeah.
What's the difference?
The difference is the recurve's a little bit more finicky. There's a difference in how you hold it with your hand. Mm-hmm. A longbow, you hold it heel down and you kind of choke the chicken a bit more because they tend to jump around a bit more than a recurve. Right. Whereas the recurve, you hold it a bit more delicate, like a compound bow. You just gently rest it in your hand. The release is the same. The concentration, the focus, the body position is all the same. It's just the way you grip the bow. That's the only difference in the longbow and the recurve.
So if there's a listener out there that's starting to get interested in what you're saying, what do you suggest they do?
I suggest going down to one of the big archery shops. I'm not sure if there's any in the South Island. I know there's a big one in the North Island, but the archery dedicated shops will have a shooting range in the back, and they'll get expert advice, and they'll be able to try a range of different bows and figure out what suits them. I say definitely if you're getting into archery, go with the traditional style. Don't get sights, don't get a compound bow, go recurve or go longbow and just keep it simple.
And these guys that are currently hunting with compound bows, you think that again, it's even a different skill set? Is it worlds apart going to the recurves and longbows?
It is a different skill set. With the longbow, once you learn how to hold it correctly and have a smooth, crisp release, that's all you need to know. And of course, tune your bow. They're a lot more finicky compound bows are, that you have to get them all tuned up so they're flinging the arrow straight. Yeah. But once you've got the basics right, it's quite easy to progress and become a good shot with that compound bow, whereas a recurve or a longbow traditional styles, it's all subconscious. So it's all instinctive, and you need to shoot a lot more arrows to become more accurate. But when you do become more accurate, it's much better for hunting because you don't have to think about ranges. You don't have to get a rangefinder out and calculate how far away the animal is. You just focus on that point, and your subconscious takes over and puts the arrow where it needs to go.
It must be much harder to get, well, first of all, you've got to get closer, but to get that clean kill.
It is, yes. You need to get close. That's the other thing, you know. You need to be able to make the call, are you comfortable shooting an animal at that distance, or do you need to get closer? You know, with the rangefinder and the compound bow, you can shoot out a lot further. You can, you know, I know people who can make shots out to 60, 70 metres and hit a tennis ball at that range with a compound bow, whereas there's no way I'll be able to do that with a recurve. So you need to be a bit more sneaky getting in on them with a recurve, and it just takes a bit more skill to get closer to that animal.
And it must be even harder in New Zealand bush. A lot of the bow hunting that I've read about is in big open spaces. You know, you hear a lot about it in the US, where the bush is kind of gnarly. You know, it's a lot harder to be quiet.
It is, yeah. You kind of have to plan your attack and ambush the deer. During the roar, it's not such a biggie because the stags are quite vocal and, you know, they tend to charge on, or you can charge on them without having to be so sneaky. And, of course, the red deer that we've got over here are a lot harder to hunt than, say, whitetail or other species of deer than they've got in the States, whereas the deer will form a hammock and walk that same track. Yeah. Our red deer are quite nomadic, and they'll approach the clearing a different way every couple of weeks, or they'll move over to the next catchment. They won't stay in the same area and have the same patterns. But once you figure out where the deer are feeding, you can ambush them on those tracks that they're going to and from their bedding area.
Are you using tree blinds to do that, or are you actually stalking up on them?
No, I actually don't have the patience to sit in the tree blind, to tell you the truth. I'd probably shoot a lot more deer with my bow if I did, but at the moment I'm just kind of sneaking around in the bush. It's probably why I haven't really shot anything yet. I broke it pretty hard in the roar, and I did have the opportunity to shoot a couple of animals, but I didn't take that opportunity. One, because the antlers weren't of very good quality, and the other two were hinds, and I was kind of after a stag, not a hind, and that's the reason I didn't shoot any during the roar. But it is a lot harder in New Zealand, but it could be viewed as being a lot easier too, because it's so dense. The deer can't see you as well. But
yeah, good point.
So I tend to hunt in bare feet now. It's the way to go for sure. You can be a lot quieter. I'll just chuck my boots in my pack when I get close on the animals, and it makes it a lot easier to sneak in and on the game.
How do you find hunting in bare feet? Because a couple of people have mentioned it's kind of the way they're going as well.
It's not for everyone. I've got pretty tough feet. You know, I wear warball bare feet quite a lot as I was a kid. I did a lot of surfing and whatnot, and hanging out on the beach and fishing and running up and down rocks. So I was always kicking around in bare feet anyway. So I do have quite tough feet. I can see someone who has soft soles not being able to hunt as well in bare feet. But another option is to get some wetsuit booties or some wetsuits, some neoprene wetsuit socks, and they're just as I'll sometimes hunt in those if it's cold, and if it's the middle of summer, I'll hunt in bare feet. But if there's any danger my feet are going to get numb or whatever, I'll put some wetsuit socks on.
So Josh, speaking of being sneaky, have you ever been lost? I haven't been lost, so to speak. I've always known exactly where I am, but I haven't been able to get out back to my destination. Right.
New Zealand, it's pretty hard to get. Well, in the North Island and the Uteweras, it's fairly easy to get lost, but on the South Island on the West Coast, where I live and do all of my hunting, it's pretty hard to get lost over here because you're always in a big river catchment. The rivers flow east to west.
Right.
But I have been lost in the North Island up in the Uteweras. I kind of knew where I was, but I didn't know exactly where the camp was.
Right.
And I came down into another creek, and I knew it wasn't the creek I was on. I had to walk down, and when I got to the joining creek, I couldn't tell if I was... I had a map and compass, but because I was in thick bush, I couldn't get any landmarks, so I couldn't triangulate my position.
Yeah.
So, yes, I've been lost for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, so have I the other week, which I was misplaced for a couple of hours is more accurate. I wasn't entirely lost. I knew roughly where I was, but I really had to struggle to figure out where I was within about 5 square kilometres. Same reason, I couldn't triangulate. Josh, there's a lot of young people that listen to the show that are interested in getting into hunting, and they haven't quite made that first step, getting out for the first time. I mean, my advice to them has always been just get out there and do it. Find someone that knows. They'll more than likely be more than happy to take them. What advice have you got to new hunters or people that are still waiting to get out there on that first one?
I say just get out there and do it. You know, a lot of people struggle to find the animals when they first start hunting, and I get a lot of people asking me, is there somewhere I can go? You know, where would you recommend somewhere that me and my dad or me and my brother can go for a hunt? And I just tell them the bush.
Yeah.
Or you've got to get out there. You know, think about all the spots, and other experienced hunters will tell you this. You know, there's quite a lot of times that people will go hunting and not see any deer, not see any sign. There's no animals in the area, and yet other times they'll go and there'll be deer prints and deer sign everywhere. and then they might go to that same area at a different time of year and there will be no deer there. So you really have to just get out there, put in the hard yards, cover as much different spots as you can, and keep a hunting diary so that you know what time of year the animals are hanging around that area and what they're feeding on for that time of year, because they might just be travelling through the area, or they might be on the river flats feeding, or they could be, you might have seen sign up the top of the spur where they're eating the kia in the springtime. So it really helps to have a diary, and then you can go back and look through that diary and see what they're eating at what time of year and what areas they're frequenting. Interesting
you say the diary thing, because it's not something I've ever done, yet experienced hunters for the last 2 or 3 interviews, the likes of Troy Grimwood, who was our disabled hunter a few weeks ago. He's in a wheelchair but still gets out there plenty, and a few other guys have actually said that for the best bit of advice for new hunters particularly is keep a diary. And you still keep one now?
I've actually never kept a diary, to tell you the truth. But I've got a pretty good memory, so I can use to remember where the deer are or where they've been. And if I had used a diary when I was starting to hunt, I would have started knocking more animals a lot quicker. But because I've been hunting for so long now and been in so many different places at different times of year, I just know where the deer are going to be.
Absolutely, and it is important that we get new people into our sport, because it's the more people that get into it, the more prominent the sport's going to be, and the more people like yourself can get sponsorship, and then it's just kind of like that great cycle that we can get into, getting these guys out there.
Pros and cons, I guess. I do notice there's a lot more trucks parked at creeks and a lot more boot prints in my favourite hunting spots now that there's more hunters.
Yeah.
I guess there's a few people out there that might beg to differ on that point, but it's definitely good that people are making use of the resource we have here in New Zealand. You look at on Facebook and social media, for example, right now, it's almost hunting season in the States, and everyone's posting. They're so excited. The hunters are just getting worked up because they can finally go out there and harvest an animal, whereas they've been pent up all year. They've got all this hunting equipment, but they can't go out and use it. So we are very lucky in New Zealand. We can just stroll onto the bush and look for an animal to shoot.
And for guys like myself that work in town, with a reasonably medium pressure job, you'd call it, it's also an opportunity just to chill out and be one with the world around us. And I'm not trying to sound like some sort of greenie or hippie. It's really about actually it's getting back to what's real.
I think that's one of that. In my personal view, anyway, I agree with you there. That's one of the great bonuses of being able to hunt. I mean, you don't even have to shoot an animal to go out. It's just the experience. I mean, an animal is always a bonus, bringing home the bacon, making you feel like a real man and all that. But if you don't shoot an animal, just getting out there, getting out in the woods, and listening to the forest, or drinking from a stream, or staying in a backcountry hut. I think it's really good for the soul, isn't it?
Well, I actually went out for a beer last night with Dave Shaw from the Hunters Club, and one thing that we sort of came out of our conversation over a few beers is hunting is absolutely about the people you're with and where you are.
That's it, because he's just cracking into it too, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. These guys are doing a great job, and hopefully that helps you, with your cause as well, getting some really good footage on TV, upping our game, because that's the big thing. The hunting shows that have managed to get onto New Zealand TV have either been offshore or very, very poorly put together. So guys like Dave putting together a decent show with great footage is going to help the industry, and certainly guys like you that want to promote it even further on mainstream TV. It can't be a bad thing, eh?
I reckon. And Dave Shaw is doing a pretty good job. I mean, his camera angles are just fantastic. And that really shows. And when he gets out there, you can tell he's just starting to hunt, whereas the boys he is going with are quite experienced. And I was actually talking to Dave, and he said he's totally addicted now after going out and just filming these guys hunting. He's into it.
Yeah, well, actually, I asked him the other day whether he'd go out hunting recreationally now, and he goes, he wish he could. He's got this real fear that the first time he goes out just with the boys hunting and not taking the camera, that's when he's going to get his best shots. It's going to miss him. He's all wound up in his series. It's really great to see someone with passion get into it, And so, Josh, lastly, but certainly not least, if people want to find you, obviously they can find your website. Have you got anything else they can have a look at? How do they find your YouTube channel?
If they just Google the Kiwi Bushman, I've also got a few whitewater rafting videos out there. So whitewater rafting or grade 5 rafting New Zealand. Most of our rafting trips are heli access, and I'm also offering hunting trips revolving around those rafting trips. We're going to crack into that next winter a bit more. I'm working with a few American outfitters, whereas they take people to the East Coast for the big stag hunts, and then they send them west, and I'll take them out chamois and tar hunting. So if people just Google Hunting New Zealand or YouTube Hunting New Zealand, most of my videos will pop up there under the Kiwi Bushman brand.
Fantastic. Now, Josh, if you're ever in the central North Island, look us up. We'll definitely have a beer together, and if I'm down your way, we'll look you up.
Yeah, I'll do that, mate. I'll be up north probably next winter, I reckon, so I'll drop you a line when I'm coming up. We'll go for a mash.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Excellent. Thanks for your time, Stephen.
If you haven't already, make sure you check out our website, www.thehuntingshow.co.nz. There's all sorts of chances to win prizes. Post your photos. We do like getting your photos and putting them up on our website. All you need to do is email them to me, info@thehuntingshow.co.nz. I would like to congratulate Lance Taylor from Gisborne. He won the hex suit that we gave away. Well, we started the competition a little while ago, if you're listening to this in archive, but he has just won that, so congratulations, Lance. That hex suit is on the way to you. Remembering you can win some great prizes with Gerber. All you've got to do is be the fan of the month. Real easy. Be active. We watch how many emails you send, how many times you post to Facebook, how many times you like us, general activity, and that all contributes towards you becoming the fan of the month and winning that great Gerber prize. Remember, guys, good hunting.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location, from a secret hunting spot known only to him, and the guy who told him about it, and possibly the guy who told the guy who told him. It's a show all about hunting in New Zealand and around the globe. This is The Hunting Show. Find The Hunting Show on Facebook and Twitter.